Hey everybody, we're Steve and Audra. We have been building out and traveling with our van since we bought it back in March of 2020.
Today we wanted to share with you our experience between a 110 volt fridge and a 12 volt fridge. When we first started building out our van, we knew we wanted to keep our costs low. We also knew that we wanted an upright refrigerator. So when we found a dorm fridge on the side of the road for free that actually worked, we thought that'd be perfect. It fit our space here perfectly, and we really hadn't found anything we liked that were 12 volt. We didn't like the cost of all the 12 volt fridge, and we knew we didn't like a chest fridge. So for the last almost 3 years, we've been using the fridge, but we have definitely run into some complications along the way, wouldn't you say?
Right. Our power bank is an EcoFlow Delta 1300, and it's a nice unit, but it has its limitations with power. So anytime you use the inverter to run the refrigerator, it really draws down the power quickly. So obviously with a fridge, anytime you got something in there, you're going to want to keep it cold 24/7. So running the inverter with the Delta really isn't an option.
The Delta also tends to overheat when we try to run the fridge.
Right.
So that's another problem. So basically, we have ended up using the fridge as a cooler. When we've had access to a freezer, we've frozen jugs of water, which lasts for a decent amount of time. But then when we don't have access to a freezer, we've had to use ice. And that just is kind of a pain to juggle and make sure our food stays cold enough. So we finally have bit the bullet. We finally found a 12 volt fridge that we didn't think was too expensive and that actually fits in the same space. It's upright and perfectly fits. So we're going to do that. We're going to switch over to a 12 volt fridge now. Make sure to stick around for the end of the video where we'll give you a full review of the fridge.
Let's get started. In an effort to not scratch our floors, just going to throw down an old towel I have in the garage. I have really built this thing in there pretty tight, so I'm going to have to wrestle with it a little bit to get it out. Now that the old fridge is out, I need to run some electrical line, and my plan is to follow these other electrical cords and run it through that little hole there in the back. So in order to get access to that point, I'm going to have to clean out my garage. So now that I got the garage mostly cleaned out, that gives me easier access to that little corner right there where the wires are coming out. I'm going to pop off that panel right there and then start pulling the wire through. After doing a bunch of research, I've decided that I'm just going to use some 14.3 that I had laying around the house. It should be sufficient for the wattage that's needed for the fridge. So there's no need to go out and spend money on additional wire. So that'll save us a few dollars. So I'm pretty happy about that. Since I have a bunch of excess of this orange and black wire, what I'm going to do is tie on to the end of that runs into the wall and simply pull it through. Hopefully that'll work as easy as I think it will. All right, there we go. All right, I think I pulled enough wire. I just need to be able to reach that fuse block. Got the wire pulled through and tucked away nicely. So now all I have to do is trim off the end and attach it to the fuse block. As you can see, I have a few open slots in this fuse block. I even have a 15 amp fuse that's available. I think I'm just going to go ahead and use that. All right, since we're doing this and we got this spot open, waiting for the new fridge to arrive, I thought, why not use this time to give this bare wood a coat of paint in the off chance that it gets wet from this sink above or this window being open. Why not?
All right, I am not gonna lie. I am super excited that this has arrived. The delivery guy was a little rough with it when he unloaded it and it was upside down, so hopefully everything's gonna be okay. Guess we'll find out.
All right, He-Man time. What do you think is going to be in here? Another box?
A refrigerator.
That looks like a refrigerator.
Ooh.
Right. Well, it definitely feels a lot lighter than the last one, so that's good. So I think the first thing we should do is to do a quick little dry fit, make sure it fits side to side and height wise, and then we'll hook it up to the power supply and let it run for a few hours, see how it goes.
We got the fridge from Rec Pro, and on their website some of the dimensions conflicted, so according to what they said, it should fit just fine with no problem. Hopefully that's the case.
Looks like we got, I don't know, maybe a half an inch to spare on top. And I think we are pretty good side to side. So one of the key components when we were building out the countertop is to make sure that the driver's seat can go back far enough and recline to a comfortable position, especially for me when I'm driving, because I am about 6'3". I need as much space as I can get, so hopefully it should still be okay. I think so. Feels about the same as the last one.
So it's probably the case with most any van build. Everything's not perfectly square. As you can see here, the fridge is close at the bottom here, and then there's a big gap as you get to the top. And then over here it hangs over a little bit, which we actually anticipated. We're hoping that we can adjust the feet so that this will be flush with our cabinet. And then as Steve just showed you, once the seat comes back, this will be okay. It won't be an issue that it's not lined up perfectly. The other thing too is that the fridge requires space on each side because of where the, I guess the cooling springs are. Is that what they're called? Coils?
Yeah.
You have to have at least an inch over here, or an inch on both sides, and an inch at the top. This works perfectly because of how we have our cabinets. It's open on the side, and then we'll have space here behind the seat. And then there's also, there's a piece of wood here, but beyond that, there's a gap. So we have all the space that it needs to breathe. So can we look inside?
Let's do it.
Voila!
Wow.
Look at that.
Look at all that cubic feetage.
So the nice thing with this design, while it's nice to have more of a freezer, I don't know that it's as practical. This actually has a lot more fridge space than our last fridge did. So we should be able to fit a lot more in here.
All right. Well, I think we're pretty happy with the dry fit. Might be a little bit of fine tuning, adjusting the feet like Audra said, maybe creating some spacers here and there. So I think the next thing to do will be to run it for a few hours and see how it does. All right, before I go and get too far ahead of myself, it's probably a good idea to give the manual a once over. What? So, I wish I would have known this beforehand. All of my research went to waste because if you recall, yesterday I went ahead and installed 14 gauge wire, which they only recommend for a little over 3 feet. My run is about 13 feet. So they say to use 12 gauge at 13 feet. And they even go on to say 14 gauge wire is not recommended. 13 or larger is recommended. So that would have been nice to know yesterday, considering I have 12 gauge available to me right now. So I basically have to rip out the wire that I installed yesterday and replace it with 12 gauge. It's not the end of the world, but it would have been nice to know that yesterday. It did say in the instructions that the refrigerator should sit for a couple hours at least, so maybe it all works out anyway. All right, it's been a little more than 24 hours since it arrived, and now I think we're to the point where we're going to connect it to the power source and just let it run for a while, maybe a few hours, make sure it works, makes ice, all that. So here goes.
So what are you doing now?
Just attaching the wires.
Which wire is that?
The black goes to the positive and the white goes to the negative. And there is a ground wire that they say just to attach to the metal part of the van. And that's something I'll have to do at some point. This whole van life thing, did not consider guys being 6'3" and a beefy 240.
6'3". I thought you were
With
6.
shoes.
I thought you were 6'2". He's exaggerating his own height, guys.
All right.
How's it going in there?
I think I got it. I'm going to, what's one more than quadruple check something? Sequential? Check something. I want to make sure I got
Cinco size.
the positives on the right ends. Make sure there's no fireworks.
Okay.
So, this is one of the things where I think it's never Too bad to quadruple check yourself. Just make sure I got the black on the positive, which I do, and the white on the negative. We're all good. Nice and tight. All right.
And in case you're wondering what the background noise is, we're being invaded by birds. Hello, ibises. All right, moment of truth. So we got our Delta here, and I'm just gonna turn it on. So the unit's at 99% right now, and its output, it looks like it's been fluctuating between about 30 and 40. The highest I've seen it goes 47, so that's not too bad. So it's about 1:30 p.m. We're gonna put some food and drink and stuff in the fridge, and then we'll give you an update later to see how everything's looking with the fridge and the power unit. See how much it's drawn down.
So the directions say on your first initial fire up to set the thermostat to 7 and let it run for a few hours. So I did that, and as you can see, it's drawn anywhere from about 45 to, I don't know, 52. So the directions say that you should ground the refrigerator to the body of the van. So this yellow line is my line to the refrigerator, and you can see this bare copper wire didn't quite have enough, so I had to add to it, and just tied into this bolt which screws into the frame of the van. So I'm hoping that's good enough. If not, drop me a comment below, let me know please.
All right, we're back out in the van. It's been a little over 2 hours, and we got in here and looked at the Delta, and it says 0 output. So we have to figure out what that means. We need to figure out if there's anything wrong, or if it's just not cooling because it's cold enough. So let's try to figure that out.
So my theory, my hope, without opening anything up yet or doing any type of investigation, is that the refrigerator has kind of reached its maximum cooling temperature, and by design has just kind of shut itself off or gone dormant, and that when we open the door, you know, it'll obviously the light will kick on, and the compressor might start running again. So hopefully that's what's going on, and there's not something worse happening.
Well, we've had things like this happen before with the Delta. Hopefully that's not the case now. So let's see. Are you ready?
Yeah.
So.
All right. So it's good. At least the light is on, so that means power's still running to it.
It's interesting that it's so low. I'm opening the fridge and it doesn't even register. But so we brought a bunch of food here, just a mismatch of the kind of stuff we usually use, and I wanted to see how it fits, and then also how the fridge runs with it. Following the instructions, we have this up to 7, which is the max to get it cold, and we let it sit for a couple hours to cool down. But it says typically all you need is to have it at 4, so I'm going to change that there like that.
So this is a good sign. Now that we've had the door open for a few seconds, you can tell that the compressor has kicked on, so it's back up into the mid 40s as it's beginning the cooling process again. So that's encouraging to know that once it reaches its kind of max temperature, that it will kind of go dormant and it's not drawing a lot of power then.
The other good sign is that we've only drawn down the power a little bit, and we don't have the solar hooked up right now, and it's showing that it could run like this for more than 24 hours. So that's definitely comforting. Once we hook in the solar or charge while we're driving, we should be having no problems at all running this consistently. All right, so we had to finagle things a little bit in order to get the shelf out, but it fits perfectly here for the milk. I just grabbed some things that would represent stuff that we often use. So obviously there's no problems with these. So that's perfect.
Nice.
Some wasted space here, which is unfortunate. All right, so the top shelf area is perfect in here for stuff. We could fit plenty of like leftovers and containers and like sour cream or things like that. It's unfortunate that for the drawer, It's not very deep. Our last drawer was a lot more deep, and we could keep eggs and some things like this kind of thing, like hummus. But it doesn't. It's just not quite wide enough, so you're limited with that. But it could go on this shelf. And the only other unfortunate thing, I think, is the design of this. So it naturally falls down, whereas it should be up here to keep stuff in place. So if you had like a jar or something, it would just fall out. I don't understand that design. So like you could force it, like if you put eggs here, you can pull this up and hold the eggs in place. So I guess that's good for eggs if it closes. Yeah. So that's something to keep in mind. I mean,
although with the price of eggs nowadays, I don't know if you want to be risking
your eggs up there. Well, that works fine, but if like we have a lot of little small things like pesto and stuff. It couldn't go there. So the next thing I wanted to see is what we can work with as far as the tiny little freezer. So, like we thought it'd be good to always have an ice pack, and then we often have these kind of containers for leftovers, and that's pretty much all they could fit in there. Like here's a bag of frozen stuff, but that wouldn't fit, so you'd have to take the ice pack out. And that was the nice thing about the dorm fridge. The dorm fridge we had a huge freezer space, but that doesn't really matter for us if we can't run it as a freezer. So you could do that, maybe some smaller ice packs, and then the next thing we want to test is some ice. We got these little guys. We're going to pour some water into here, put it in the freezer, and just test it to see how quickly it freezes. Make sure it's working right as a freezer. We'll see. These are not the best ice cube trays. They're super flimsy, and water goes everywhere, but I'm going to try this one. Except I don't have a place to put it right now. Will it fit right there? I think I'd probably try the more traditional, like, rigid ice cube trays. So there it is. So, will that close? It'll be interesting to see if that actually freezes. There. So we'll see how it goes. I had just looked at this a second ago when I was filling the ice, and it was up to around 40. Now, as you can see, it's back down to 5. And now on our Delta, it says 99 hours. So I think we'll be fine with this fridge. That's pretty exciting.
So we've been through the ringer, both with our dorm fridge and or the Delta, sometimes like for freaking out, overheating, showing hundreds of wattage being used.
Like 300 and 400 with the fridge ones.
So I'm going to reserve my excitement until we can test this a little bit more. But it is encouraging that at least it appears that once, again, it reaches temperature that it kind of goes dormant and shuts itself
or just
off. I don't know if that's used the right terminology, but so we'll see. We'll see how this behaves.
Or it just uses really low. Like right now, it's just 5. That's
well, we have our lights on, so
that's
that might
true.
be.
Oh, there you go. So we just turned our lights off, and it's down to 0.
All right. Just about 8 o'clock Saturday morning. Come check on things. Delta is about 79%. Currently drawing roughly 30 watts. Check to see where things are at. Nice. Temperature is about 38 degrees. We have it on level 6. We've used about 30% of the battery, again, over the course of 24 hours. So that's not too bad, especially considering we don't have any input coming in at the moment. No solar, of course, no DC to DC while we're driving, anything like that. So that's pretty nice. I'm pretty pleased with that, all things considered. Now, the one thing I do want to check is to see how well this freezer portion does. Yeah. It's kind of making ice. By 24 hours, this should be completely frozen. This one here is kind of slushy. These are pretty good. So, my review is the freezer unit. I wouldn't count on that. I think it'll be nice for us if we simply want to use it to keep some ice packs cold in case the fridge ever does lose power. Then we have, you know, kind of a quick backup to keep things cold. But other than that, I wouldn't really count on it too much.
Hey guys, we're making some dinner here in the van. We just got on the road earlier today. We want to give you an update on the fridge once we were on the road to let you know how things were going. The fridge actually seems to be running great, not drawing too much energy. And we were able to fit quite a bit of food in the fridge. So I'll show you that now. Here it is. We have a lot of leftovers. We like to cook stuff up before we get on the road. So we were able to fit a lot of leftovers in here. There's milk, whipped cream, leftovers, condiments, more containers of food that we cooked up, sour cream, a bunch of produce in here, produce on the side. We figured out a way to get the eggs to stay. Steve jerry-rigged this. Fits perfect. And a couple, oh, he got that to work too. I don't understand the design. This is the only thing I'm not happy with. These little bars just fall. So he actually, I think this is a strawberry container that you get from the grocery store, and he used a little twisty tie to get it to stay. And now we've got all these little places to put stuff. Pretty happy with it. All right, so let's check and see how the power unit's looking. We started out probably around noontime today. The unit was at 100%. The solar was plugged in, and we turned on the fridge to get it running. So as you'll see, we've only come down about 6%. Right now the output's around 16 to 18 watts. So it's doing pretty well. I don't think we'll have anything to worry about at all running this fridge. Now that we've been using our 12-volt Everchill fridge for a while now, we wanted to give you a final rundown. We've been really happy with the performance of it. As I mentioned before, we really wanted an upright fridge to fit in this spot. And it was pretty hard to find one that was in an affordable price range for us and that had the storage that we needed and the capacity. And this checks all those boxes. We paid almost exactly $600 for it at recpro.com. And we think it's a pretty good deal compared to a lot of the other brands out there that are so much more expensive. So the fridge is 19 inches wide, 19 inches deep, and then it's 32 3/4 inch high with adjustable feet. It's 3.3 cubic feet with adjustable shelves, and it requires about an inch of breathing space on either side, which we have because our cabinets are open in here. It seems to cycle between drawing 0 to 45 watts. So we have plenty of storage in here. We've adjusted the shelves to where we like them. And as you can see, we have a lot of stuff in here. We've even had more. It's kind of getting a little bit emptier now. The only critique we have of the fridge is the design of these shelf areas here. As we showed you earlier, these bars just fall. There's nothing to hold things in place. So I think what we've done, Steve came up with this hack. I think it works really well. So this is what we'd recommend. We just cut open an egg carton and he used a twisty tie around the bar through the egg carton, and now we can keep our eggs here, and we keep some other smaller things here as well. Then in this area, he actually cut a strawberry container, the plastic kind, cut the top off and put a twisty tie here as well, and now we can keep small things here. So we actually have a lot more storage now than we did before with our dorm fridge. The other thing is we have found that the freezer does work. We have stuff in here. You can see that there's some buildup, but we're able to keep things in here. It's pretty frozen overall. With broccoli, we have broccoli in here and some other things. We have found that if you put something in that's frozen, it does all right keeping it frozen, but it doesn't do well freezing things. So like if you want to make ice, it doesn't do as well that way. And as you can see here, we pretty much keep this at the highest setting. The manual said it usually works fine at 4, but we found we need to keep it higher in order to keep things as cold as we would like. We've been so happy with this fridge that we reached out to Rec Pro to see if they wanted to partner with us, as we think it's important to share this alternative to the popular brands out there that we see other van lifers using. They are actually the sponsor of today's video, and they're offering a 5% discount if you use the code below.
We're so happy we made the switch from the 120 dorm fridge to the 12 volt fridge. It's so much less headache. We don't have to deal with ice, and probably in the long run we'll wind up saving ourselves a lot of money over having to buy so much ice.
Yeah. So if you have any questions about the fridge or just how we do van life in general, drop us a comment. We'll be glad to answer. We also have a whole series of our van build process, a tour of our van, and our travel vlogs where we share how we do van life and travel on a budget. So if you want to check those out, we'll leave the links in the description and comments below. We want to say a special thank you to our patrons who contributed to the purchase of this fridge: Christina Williams, Lanny and Roxanne Adventures, and Frank and Sue Wolf.
Thank you so much for your support. If you'd like to become a patron, just hit the link below. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching.
We hope you'll join us for our next video as we head over to the Gulf Coast of Florida for our next travel series. See you then.
See ya.